This is Joe Wong. Welcome to the Trap Set. During the age of social distancing, we're recording remotely and releasing episodes every day. Today's guest is Georgia Hubley, drummer and singer of Yo La Tengo, the New York-based band she co-founded in 1984. Georgia spoke to me from Montauk, New York. Georgia?
Hi. Yes, this is Joe.
How's your day been?
Pretty much like every other day. It's been fine. I went for a nice walk. That's usually at some point during the day. I'll go for a walk and then make dinner and then watch a movie and then go to sleep. It's like pretty much the day.
It doesn't sound like a bad life.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, what are we going to do? I don't know. We'll see how things... I sort of was thinking, though, at some point, I'm hoping we can start playing together. At least, I feel like 3 people can get in a room and play together, for, equally distanced apart should be okay.
Well, especially since 2 of them are together all the time anyway, presumably.
Exactly. Yeah, right. We can be closer, and then he has to be on the other side of the room.
You should get one of those plexiglass shields like they have for certain drummers. Yeah. He can stand behind that.
Yeah, actually, I think we have one of those. That's hilarious. We had that for when it's for recording. We had these sort of like clear plexiglass baffles that were, a little flimsy, but that's really funny. We'd set that up, put him on the other side of it. That'd be great.
I work a lot in animation.
Really?
I write music for a few different animated shows, and so I was really interested to know what it was like growing up in a family of animators.
Interesting, I guess.
So I should mention for people that don't know that your parents were John and Faith Hubley, and they were both animators.
John Hubley, my dad, worked at UPA. My mom did not. They knew each other, but then when they started working together is when they formed their own independent animation studio. For a while it was called Storyboard Inc., I guess, and then later it just became Hubley Studio.
Were you an artistic person when you were growing up?
Yeah, I guess so. That seems fair. I went to art school, so... But let's see. Yeah, I mean, my parents were very... They painted a lot and drew a lot in addition to the films that they made. And so... there was a lot of art in the house, and then there'd be a lot of drawing and stuff like that. The family would draw together sometimes when we were really young. That was fun.
Were they musical people?
They were musical people in a certain sense. I mean, a lot of their films, I don't know how familiar you are with their independent films, but they worked with a lot of jazz musicians, so they were very interested in jazz. So they liked jazz mostly and classical music, and but not really rock music so much. That would be my brothers and sisters sort of delving on our own into our own tastes.
Did you have older brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I have 2 older brothers and a sister. My sister's an animator also.
Is that Emily?
That is Emily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you were a kid, you were listening to, whatever your parents had in the house, which was mostly jazz. And then did your older siblings turn you on to rock music?
Yeah, I would say so. Certainly, I remember my brothers having Beatles and Stones records, and so, yeah, that's basically what happened. And then, friends at school have tastes we would acquire from different people. But it wouldn't really have anything to do with my parents.
Yeah, what kind of music really resonated you around the time when you started to develop your own taste?
Well, I kind of went through I went through a variety of periods, starting with kind of basically listening to the radio, just your AM radio, so your basic hits on the radio, which was fun to listen to. And then I guess I liked soul music for a while. I liked country rock music for a while. I was pretty interested in reggae when that was beginning, and then and then there was a brief disco period. Sort of ran the gamut of music, and then eventually, became interested in punk rock and new wave music, as they used to call it back then.
Did you play an instrument as a child?
No, not really. I mean, I took piano lessons for a while, but it didn't exactly go anywhere. Not really until I guess when I was seeing bands is when I started getting interested in playing drums. I played a guitar a little bit. My dad played guitar, so he would show me chords, but nothing, that really stuck too much.
When did you start seeing bands?
I started to get interested in going to see bands probably in my late teens, and then when I went to art school in Baltimore, so I started seeing bands then, and then I moved back to New York, and pretty much late teens into early 20s, and it just went on from there.
So this was kind of like in the heyday of CB's or Max's Kansas City, those kind of places. In your late teens.
I guess so. I mean, maybe not I would say heyday. Certainly not the early stuff. I never saw television, but I saw Tom Verlaine, and I would go to CBGB's a lot, but a lot of those bands were not as well known. I saw the Talking Heads. I don't think I saw them at CBGB's, though. I saw them in Washington, D.C., but I would go to Max's. I would see the Heartbreakers there and different other local bands, and where there was another club that I really liked called Tier 3 that a lot of English bands would kind of come, and they'd play a few different venues, and that would be sort of like the unannounced shows would be there because it was a really small club. And I don't know, there were a whole variety of places to see bands.
Were you living in the city with your parents at the time, or were you out in the suburbs somewhere?
I grew up in New York City, and at that point I moved. So I grew up, and then in Manhattan, and then I went to school in Baltimore for a year, but I transferred back to New York, and I went to Parsons for a little while, and then I didn't like it, so I dropped out pretty quick, and then I went to a painting school that did, sort of just an independent drawing and painting school, and then so I lived at home for a little while, and then I would find people to let me stay at their houses or their apartments because I didn't want to be living with my mom. But so eventually and then my sister and I ended up getting an apartment and then I never lived at home again after that. Lucky for me. It was cheap back then. It was super cheap to live on your own. Not so much anymore.
Which neighborhood were you in?
I grew up on the 70s in on the east side, and then I lived on Bleecker Street for a while, and then I moved to Hoboken, and I lived in Hoboken for a really, 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 really long time. But I don't anymore. I live in Manhattan.
Did you have any specific ambitions when you were in art school?
I think my ambition was to be a painter, and it kind of just fizzled away. I sort of, as I got into music, I kind of kept it up for a while, and I still paint some now, but not nearly as much as I used to. And I don't think I was very ambitious. Is what it really comes down to.
Do you feel like you were still kind of trying to figure out what you wanted to do at that point?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I know it's very hard to look at your life in that way. I don't really know. Honestly, I don't really know what happened.
Yeah. Well,
it's just yeah.
Can you remember playing drums for the first time?
I remember. Well, I used to play by myself mostly. And when I lived with my mom, after I moved back to New York, I didn't have a full drum kit, but I had like a little practice kit that I would practice at home, and she let me, do that in the apartment, which was pretty nice because I'm sure it probably was annoying to some of the neighbors. Well, it wasn't too loud, but at some point she let me set up, when I had a real drum kit, she let me set it up at her studio, the Hubley studio, because my dad had died when I was in high school, so now it was just my mom ran the animation studio, and at night I would go there and practice my drum kit, and it was very nice of her because I'm sure people were complaining, and eventually she told me, "Oh, okay, you can't do this anymore." But it was cool. It was a good way to be able to play. I would just play along with tapes, with headphones and tapes and stuff. But I honestly don't remember the first time I literally played along with somebody. I was in a band briefly with someone I met at art school, and we never played out. We just would practice, which was really fun. We would just get together and practice. So that would have probably been the first time I played with someone. That was when I was on art school in New York.
Did you feel a visceral difference between that and working as a visual artist?
Yeah, I think what happened for me was I liked the camaraderie of playing music, and I think I got really frustrated with creating with art on my own because I found it kind of I found the people involved with it were very serious and kind of humorless sometimes, and I wasn't really enjoying that aspect of it, and the loneliness of it. So I think it kind of makes sense that music, when you play with you're with other people and you're doing something that's collaborative. And I think ultimately I was drawn to that. Plus, I got so frustrated with all the art I was making. Mostly, I thought it was really, I would just get really frustrated when I didn't think anything was any good. And I think it made it hard to keep going because I would, hit a wall and would find it really difficult to get out from under it, which I think is why I just eventually playing music just worked more for me than painting.
Yeah, maybe if you're surrounded by a bunch of ultra serious art students and teachers, it amplifies your own inner doubt.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there were some great people that I met, and I had some really great teachers, too.
It seems like people that went to art school or have some background in visual arts tend to make great musicians.
Oh, that's interesting. Uh-huh.
And people that went to music school, like myself included, tend to need like a period to recover after it to find their voice again. So it's just an observation. Have you been through a similar phase as a musician where you felt like nothing you were doing was any good?
Yeah, but I think it's sure. Yeah, that happens a lot. That happens all the time. But at least it's not all on one person. Since the three band members in our group really do create together. Even just all the songwriting pretty much comes from us playing together and seeing if something catches our interest or whatever. So when things aren't sounding good, it's generally we all weirdly feel the same way, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, but then you're kind of beholden to the other two people to be, just keep plugging away. You can't just go like, this sucks, I'm going to go home now. Because there's, you're in a group and you've got to keep going. So it's kind of interesting how that happens.
Did you make records with other bands before you worked with Yo La Tengo?
No, never. No, this is really the only band I've really been in, for sure.
It's like marrying your high school sweetheart and staying together forever.
It is a lot like that. Yep, very kind of unusual, I suppose.
It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing. It is pretty amazing.
So much of what this show has focused on is people that have been drummers in great bands, and then the band breaks up, and then those people have to kind of reconcile who they are as a person outside of the band.
This band, one thing that's so great about it is it's not like I'm not going to get kicked out of this band. And I'm sure that's really, I feel like there's drummers who play in bands and then they're kind of beholden to whoever's in charge of the band generally. I mean, there's a lot of bands where all the musicians are totally integral to the band, but then there's plenty of people who I was just thinking about Janet Weiss when she is no longer in Slater-Kinney, and that was her life for so long, and that must just be so weird to then try to, well, who am I going to play with, and what am I going to play, and that's nothing I really ever have to deal with.
Well, she came on this show and talked to me about that, but she has a really evolved, positive way of looking at it. It seems like it's the best thing for her. Yeah. And I know she played with you guys at the Hanukkah shows
she
this
did.
year.
That was really fun. Yeah. No, she is incredibly strong. I don't know that I could be as strong as her. Everything she went through and came out the other end is just so inspirational, so amazing.
Another person that comes to mind
Yeah.
is Budgie, who played with Susie and the Banshees.
Oh, yeah.
And that
Sure,
was
yeah.
an interesting story, too, because they were married and they had the Creatures together after the Banshees.
Oh, yeah.
And then they broke up romantically and musically. And so, you know, for the rest of your life, as an artist, you're associated with this person who, you know, you loved and now you're not together anymore. It seems so complicated.
Yeah, I know. It's interesting, yeah. Oh, right, and he played with the Slits too, I think.
Yeah, he was on
Before
Cut.
that, yeah. I remember. I was a big fan. Well, I knew that I actually saw the Slits, and he was there for sure. That's a long time ago. Anyway. Yeah.
So how did you and Ira meet?
We met through being fans of music, basically. I think we liked a lot of the same bands, so we would just be at the same venues. And a lot of those bands were not extremely popular, so it was kind of inevitable. There, you know, be sort of like, oh, there's that person that I've seen at all these other shows. And eventually we just met, and we had, he was a rock writer, and he wrote for the New York Rocker, which was a magazine in New York that I had friends who worked there too. So, you know, eventually we just met, and then we started going to see bands together, and then we decided we wanted to try to play together, and that was a very long process, but that's good. Here we are.
It was a very long process?
Yeah, we took a long time. We would get together to play, just the two of us. Sometimes we would have a friend of ours who was in a real band come and play with us. But we would just play covers and kind of, you know, mess around really, very casually. So it took a long time before we actually, you know, decided to write our own songs and then actually play in front of people. So for a long time, we would just, like, you know, like kids playing in the basement while playing covers or whatever and amusing ourselves. And, but I think it was, I mean, well, I can't quite remember, but it could have been like up to a year before we ever even played in front of anyone.
You mentioned that you had a friend that would come join you who was in a real band.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was there a time when it felt like Yo La Tengo was a real band to you?
It took a while, for sure. I think we were very very shy and very kind of self-deprecating, and it was hard to take ourselves very seriously. So we had a lot of different people who we would play with, and we would play before we even, you know, had the name of the band. We would play at parties and play covers, and different people would sit in with us. So yeah, it took a while for us to take it seriously, and then you know, and then eventually we did.
Where does that self-deprecation come from?
Oh, geez, I don't know. That could be like in your blood or something. I don't know.
Were you self-deprecating in your other endeavors before that, like as a painter?
Oh, yeah. I think I was. I think that's, as I started to say, I think I was so, I would get so down on what I was doing that it to the point where it was debilitating, where I just felt like, you know, if there was a painting I was working on and it wasn't anything, and it was so depressing. It was like, this sucks. I can't keep doing this. So yeah, I mean, I think I'm not that way anymore. I mean, I can still recognize when something isn't working or it's not that good, but it doesn't mean you have to give up. I think when I was younger, I would just give up much more easily. So, that I think Ira had that similar personality where he was shy about making his own music. So, we took a while. I mean, I think we were supportive of each other, but it definitely took a while I didn't even start singing for a long time because it was much too scary. And then eventually, you just get over these things.
You said that it took you a while to take the band seriously. So what did taking it seriously mean at the time?
I know. That is kind of a weird thing to pinpoint, really. I'm sure when people started responding to the band, and then when someone wanted to put out a record, things that were concrete, such as those, would probably be when we started taking ourselves more seriously. And then we would just, I think when it became clear at some point that we actually had some fans, that they weren't just your friends and family. And I think that's probably that was probably pretty eye-opening, and it helps build your confidence.
You mentioned your negative self-evaluation as a visual artist. Were you able to get beyond that more easily as a musician?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. No, I think we liked what we were doing. I think we had certainly had similar tastes in music. So if, when we were really starting to play, we would just kind of emulate other bands that we liked, or if something we were playing reminded us of something some other music that we liked, we would you could just kind of build on that. And plus it's really, it's fun, and it's rewarding. So, I mean, it wasn't like we hated everything we did. You could recognize that certain things were better than others, but I think we liked it. If we thought it was really awful, we probably wouldn't have kept going.
I'm wondering if your drumming style was developed to fit specifically into Yo La Tengo.
Well, that's probably true. Or yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much a self-taught drummer, so I just from imitating things that I liked, or from from listening to records or watching other musicians. And yeah, I don't know. That's really hard to it's hard to figure out that.
Did you consciously choose to be self-taught given your formal background in the arts? Like, did you want this to be something of your own without the overt influence of other people?
No, I don't think it was that conscious a decision. I think it just was so. I mean, I have a feeling what I was drawn to in music probably played into it quite a bit, where a lot of the bands that I started seeing were pretty raw and pretty punk rocky, and there wasn't a lot of fancy musicianship going on, and that seemed to suit me fine. So I think I just didn't really. It never really. I mean, at some point I had some lessons from someone, but it didn't really go. It was mostly just to help me get from point A to point B. It wasn't anything like what I suppose real musicians do. I still don't really think of myself as a. It's so hard to talk to people. It's so hard to do these kind of interviews, and it's nothing against you or anyone, but it's very hard to look at myself and figure out, well, how did you get to be this, and why did you do that? And it's like, I don't really know the answer. I just kept going, basically.
Is that a bad question to ask, or want to boil it down to those kind of mile markers? Is it reductive? I know it's kind of reductive to a certain extent, but is there a way that?
It's not a bad question at all. It's just funny because I never really think that. I don't think so much in a straight line that way. I mean, I think when it's kind of like, wow, I think when we play together, and I've played with other people sometimes, but I have to say I tend to find I don't enjoy playing as much with other people as I do my own band. And there's other people that I really love their music, and I'm happy to play with them because I feel like I really understand that music. But often I'll just feel like, I'm not really the kind of drummer. I feel like I'm a very specific kind of drummer that's good for this band. It's interesting when we play together, and I'm talking about the three of us too, because I think at this point, I mean, James and Ira and I have been playing together for so many years, and there's such a intuitiveness to what we do and how we respond to each other that it's pretty amazing how little dialogue there ends up being, because it's just you start playing and I mean, there are times when you start articulating, well, this would be cool, or maybe this section could blah, 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 whatever, when you're really hunkering down writing music. But just the act of playing, there's something that's so non-verbal about it, and it's so satisfying. But I know what you mean about, the thing of, and I feel like that's a stigma to drummers, particularly, that they're supposed to be able to do this, and that, and like really perfectly too, which I don't think I fall into that category.
Yeah, it's interesting. A few times now, you've referred to yourself as not a real musician.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, obviously you're a real musician and you make real music.
I am. Yeah, yeah.
There's an idea that there's such a thing as like an objective professional standard that one can meet if one wants to be a professional musician. And I don't think that that's necessarily true. I think it's a myth that's perpetuated by, academia.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I guess so. I think that's right. Yeah. And because that myth is kind of, it's an old myth and it's a strong myth, I think it's easy to fall into feeling like, you don't really belong because you're outside that community. And, but I think there's a strength to that too, when you're, you feel like, well, I belong to this thing that nobody else belongs to. So.
Yeah, it's just kind of ridiculous if you think about it in another context. Like if, say, you wanted to write novels and then you went to school and they said, well, first you have to learn how to write like James Joyce, and then you have to learn how to write like Kurt Vonnegut, and then, on and on. And then you're allowed to have your own voice. I know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And that's kind of what it's like.
Kind of like that school. Too, in a way. Yeah,
art school is?
Oh, I felt like it was a little bit that way. But it's funny, I didn't really mind that in art school because I was younger, and I didn't stay in art school that long. But I didn't mind like trying to, draw this or study that or whatever. I kind of was into it, but I didn't stay long enough to get really bogged down with it. Uh-oh. Is that me or you? Oh, no.
What? Do you hear something?
Yeah, I think my phone is dying because let me
shoot.
go. No, it's okay. Let me go. Let me plug it in. Hold on a second. Okay. Are you still there?
Yes.
Are you there? Okay. Yeah, since I have a flip phone, I'm really spoiled that I like almost never have to charge it. So I forget that sometimes if you talk on it for a long time, it will remind you that it needs to be charged. But anyway, it's charging now, so it's okay.
Do you have an aversion to technology, or at least to smartphones?
I guess so. Yeah, I mean, I have a computer, as you know, because we've emailed each other. And I have an iPad, which I use sometimes, but I'm pretty much an idiot when it comes to that stuff. And I don't mind. Like, I don't really, people would be like, get an iPhone, and I'm like,
Who tells you to get an iPhone?
Oh, people with iPhones. They don't so much anymore. Now people are like, oh, I'm jealous. I miss the flip phones. But some people do. But I don't care. This is fine for me. I feel like I'm also one of those people who drive. When I drive, I don't have an iPhone, so I have to like know where I'm going, and I don't have what's it called? The thing in the car that tells you where to go.
A GPS.
Yes, the GPS, exactly. I don't have that either. So, but I like figuring out how to get somewhere and like visualizing where you are. If you're in a city, trying to figure out just even north, south, east, west. It's just, I like that kind of orientation. I would not be happy to just drive and like have no idea where I'm going and just be listening to turn here, turn there.
Yeah, your life is being curated for you in that
way. Right.
And your brain, I mean, I feel like my brain has atrophied definitely since since getting a cell phone. I mean, I used to have like hundreds of people's phone numbers memorized.
I know, me too.
Do you still have that?
I was good at it too, yeah.
You don't memorize people's phones?
I don't. I mean, I can remember certain people that I've known long enough that their numbers are still in my brain, but it's not like I ever use it because you just go. Well, I still have a landline, so some people, but I don't really talk. You don't end up talking on the phone as nearly as much anymore as I used to.
Yeah, and I think that's that's less of a. I would prefer to talk to somebody than to text.
Yeah. Texting. Well, it's good for just, you need to just say one thing.
Right, like meet here this time.
Yeah, right. But yeah, no. I mean, and I don't like so much talking on the phone. So I'm always would rather be in person. But now that's out of the question. Can't do that anymore. But hopefully one day we'll be able to see each other in person. You're in California, right?
Yes. I'm in Pasadena.
Pasadena. Oh yeah. I was there not that long ago. I went to the is it the Botanical Garden? Whatever
Huntington Gardens?
Yes, the Huntington Gardens, yeah. It's a nice place.
We just moved to this neighborhood, but I was thinking of getting a annual membership to the gardens.
Oh, yeah. That's a good idea. You should.
During the early years of Yo La Tengo, were you working a day job?
I worked a little bit. I used to do some proofreading for a pretty trashy publisher that not really soft porn, because it wouldn't even quite be that, but some version of like romantic, sleazy romantic novels, which were kind of fun. I did that for a little while, and I worked for my mom when she was making films. I would do some animation for her, and I actually did some animation for a company that did animation commercials. So I worked at that place for a while, but not like, I've pretty managed to like bumble my way through life and kind of not always be my own boss in the end, which is, I know. Well, I'm lucky. It's not bad at all.
Why do you say bumble?
Oh, because that's. I feel like it just because similar to what I was trying to explain before, when I can't explain how I got from this to that to the other thing. It feels like I didn't exactly dictate
Right.
where my life went. It's just this happened and that happened and that happened. So I guess that's what I mean. I know it sounds kind of insulting, but
well, I feel like
I wandered through life happily. How's that?
Well, I wonder if you have strong instincts. Like, do you trust? Are you good at?
Yeah, I
like,
do
you
have
good
strong instincts. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, that's kind of like the opposite of bumbling in a way.
Okay,
I mean,
maybe you're right.
Because what you're saying is like you don't seem to be the kind of person that makes specific plans and like a 5-year outlook of your life and executes them one by one. But I feel like most people that make those kind of plans don't execute them, or it doesn't turn out how they planned it.
Exactly. You can't exactly control everything. Yeah.
No, but I think your way of doing it is acknowledging that, and you have the ability to respond to whatever's happening in the world and adjust accordingly. And it's not. The other reason why I feel like it's not bumbling is because like the results speak for themselves, and it's you have a body of work that speaks for itself. You know what I mean? It's not like a mistake that happened once.
No. I think you're right. And when you brought up instincts, I think I do have really good instincts, and I think also that if I were, let's say, and there have been, I can't think it right off the bat, but in a job situation that really blew, I just would I'd quit, or I just wouldn't put up with it. So I think there is that element of like I know what I like and I know what I don't like, so I just respond that way. And it's interesting when I went to when I quit when I left Parsons, I just knew like this is so not for me, and I managed to get back pretty much all of my tuition, despite the fact that the dean was trying to talk. Yeah, he was like, I literally quit, and then I had to go like on a Friday and say I want to withdraw from this school, and he was trying to tell me I should wait till Monday, and I figured out that if that specific date, if I had waited, I wouldn't get back like I was kind of a decent chunk of money, and I was like, nope, I'm doing it right now. That was one of my proudest moments. So.
And there wasn't any voice inside of you that was like, hey, maybe we should finish this because we started it, or anything like that?
Yeah, no, I wanted out. I knew I wanted out. It was just like not the right place for me at all. Even
was your
my mom,
mom's...
I had to convince her. She was not happy. But
oh, really? Okay.
I had to convince her that I knew what I was doing.
So this is all just kind of coming from within. It's not that your parents were like, if something doesn't feel right, get out of there. It wasn't a learned thing. It was just like an innate thing. Yeah,
exactly.
That's awesome.
I know. So there you go. I made some good decisions.
Well, I'm glad you decided to get on this call, even though you hate phone calls.
I know. I don't hate it. I know. No, I just feel like I don't know.
I was going to mention to you the first time I saw your band play, I was 17 or 18, and I was in the first band that I played with that went on tour, and we went to Washington, D.C., and all the power got cut out on the street where we were playing. And you guys were playing at the 930 Club, and I was wandering down the street trying to find some food. It was my first time ever in D.C., and you came out and played acoustic for the people on the sidewalk. It was great.
Yeah.
It's a really great memory of a first time seeing your band.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's a really good memory. That was weird because it was kind of like, it wasn't even a blackout. It was like a brownout. And they, so it took the venue kind of a while to decide if they were going to cancel the show or not. And then eventually they just did, and we asked them, can we just go do this? Because we were like in an alley, I guess. But yeah, no, I feel like we've done that before. We've done that other occasions too. But yeah, no, that's a really good memory. Oh, that's wild that's the first time you saw us. That's funny. Yeah.
Do you still get a lot of joy from playing music?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Have you ever felt disconnected from that joy to the extent where you've considered doing something else with your life?
I think the only thing that I would feel, I think when I feel sort of mournful that I abandoned my visual art part of my personality. And I haven't abandoned it because I still do it, but I don't do it with that kind of, I don't do it all the time, and I go long stretches without doing any. So I think if there was anything that I felt like, well, if you weren't going to do this, you would go do that, because I feel like that's just as part of my personality is playing music.
When you
but
say
they can coexist, yeah.
Yeah, when you say mournful, like, does it feel like a loss that you didn't move forward?
I think
like,
I feel like I feel like I let myself down by not pursuing art more. And not that I wish that I was never in a band or anything like that. I feel a little mournful that I kind of let it go. And as I described, I let it go under circumstances of, feeling, what's the right word? Not fulfilling what I wanted to do. I walked away from an uncomfortable situation within myself. So there is a little bit of I let myself down in that regard. So I think that's where the mournfulness comes from. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. But it's there. I mean, but I think that's, if anything, there's a feeling of regret that I didn't do more art in my life. It's not like my life is over. I could still do it, and I do. It's just, if you feel like, what did you not do as much as you wanted to? That would be the thing that I didn't do as much as I wanted to. But it's fine. It's good. I have a good life. I really do. I hope I get to play music again. This is the part that's awful about right now is, we had all these shows that we're not going to play for the rest of the year, probably. It's just, anyway.
Well, you mentioned, you mentioned Janet before. I recently made the first album I've made as a singer. And
really? Yeah.
Janet was going to be touring on drums for me, and we had all these shows booked. And obviously, it was for May, so it's been rescheduled for the fall, but we'll see if that's even possible when that time comes.
Yeah,
but,
I know.
But I feel a mixture of sadness and relief because, as you were kind of talking about before, it's really stressful when you first start singing for the first time, and I've only done it live once.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Now I have more time to mentally prepare for this.
Yeah, right. That's true. Yeah. Well, I hope it happens. And, I hope we can all go back to playing.
Does James live in the city?
He lives in Brooklyn.
Well, I like the idea of just, putting up the plexiglass around him. I think that would work.
That's really funny. That's such a great concept. I almost want to do that just before he shows up, just to make him laugh, because he would think it's funny. But
I played a couple shows with him, with my friend Kid Millions, has this thing called Man Forever. And we did some shows with James.
Yeah. Okay. Did I see you? Have I met you before?
Maybe. It was at LPR in the Village.
Yeah. We were at that show.
Yeah, maybe I did meet you there.
Okay. Yeah, that was great. That was a great show. I played with Man Forever.
I definitely know you were not playing with us that night, but I think maybe we did meet that night.
Okay, yeah. I love him. I haven't talked to him in so long. I hope he's okay wherever he is. I'm sure he is.
Well, he's good. He recovered from a terrible car accident.
I know. Well, when we went to his wedding, so we saw him then. But I haven't seen him since. But yeah, and that was after the car accident. It's amazing that he recovered after that.
He put together a one-man show about that experience, and
oh really?
Everybody that I know that went to it said it was great, and I'm hoping he brings it out here.
Yeah. Oh, I should write him.
But anyway,
right.
Georgia, you have another call coming up, but I just wanted to thank you so much for being on the show, and for somebody who's relatively averse to A, talking on the phone, and B, talking about herself. You're great at it, and it was really fun to talk to you, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. It was fun to talk to you too, and I have to thank you for telling me that I didn't bumble my way through life. Now I can never say that again. You made a good point that I accept, and I think you're right.
Well, thanks, and thanks for listening to me bumble through this conversation.
That's great. No, it was a pleasure. All pleasure.
Right. Have a great night.
Okay, you too.
The Trap Set is produced by me, Joe Wong, along with Chris Karwowski, who also edits the program. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at The Trap Set, and visit our website, thetrapset.net, to subscribe to our show for free. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please donate to our show. If you can't afford to donate, please tell a friend and give us a good rating on iTunes. Send your feedback and guest requests to thetrapset@gmail.com.